Today I have 10 exciting space-themed board games to share with you, although in this video I'm going to do things a little differently from how I normally do a top 10 video. Normally I do it countdown style. Today I've broken it down into 5 categories and I have 2 candidates for each category. Those categories are Best Space Board Game, Best Cooperative Board Game, Best Scientific Board Game, Best Fantasy Board Game, and finally, Best All-Around Space-Themed Board Games. The first category is the Best Space-Themed Board Game, which just means that it has a space theme, but the theme isn't a very dominant attribute of the game, and so while I otherwise may have overlooked it, since I'm usually really big on theme, I wanted to include a few games that are still a lot of fun, even though they aren't so thematic. The first of these games is by the designer of Citadels, and it reminds me a lot of Concordia, which is a game I really like, and Imhotep in the way that ships get filled. The game is Mission Red Planet. Essentially, it's an area control game where players are competing for control of different regions of Mars, and to arrive on Mars, they have to load their astronauts onto ships. The main mechanic that's putting astronauts onto ships and directing where they go and interacting on the red planet is all done by playing role cards. So if you've played Concordia before, it's a lot like that. Every player starts the game with an identical set of cards, and at the beginning of every round, each player selects one card that will be the active role for that round. Most of the cards will put an astronaut in a ship, and then they have other varying effects. But it's a very dynamic game, and it's also very competitive. The next game, I would argue, is very thematic, but only with respect to its theme surrounding competing factions. As far as the space is concerned, it doesn't really have to take place in space, it just happens to, and the game is Cosmic Encounter. If you haven't played this game is a classic game. It's decades old. The idea is every single player has an alien race, so there you go, space theme, and the winner is the player who can obtain the most foreign colonies. The way they earn colonies, though, is by flipping over cards to see who they're going to invade, and then the players have to pick an alliance in order to fight by revealing cards. There's not very many spaceships, there's not a lot of space-specific things going on, but there is a huge amount of interaction, and the main mechanic of the game is actually the player-to-player and social interaction that takes place around the table. It might be the case that I've played Cosmic Encounter more than any other game, so I have a lot of nostalgia attached to it, but if I was going to criticize it, I would just warn you that it is a game that encourages a lot of debate, arguing, alliances being formed and being broken, and it can be extremely competitive, so if you're not into that, you probably wouldn't like it, but if you really like the excitement of a game with a lot of social interaction, Cosmic Encounter is an excellent game. The next category is Best Cooperative Space Game, and the first game in the category is The Crew, which almost needs no introduction. There is something almost viral about this game. It has extremely addictive gameplay. It's basically a cooperative trick-taking game. If you haven't played before, the theme is like so silly. There's a little manual that tells you the flavor text for these like space missions, and your team is going on these missions. They have to accomplish these objectives, but what that boils down to, you and the other players are going to receive a hand of cards after dealing the entire deck, and then another smaller deck of cards will determine which players are responsible for taking which tricks or which cards from the hand. If you and the other players, acting as a team but with very limited communication, can play the entire hand so that the right tricks go to the right people, you win. Without a doubt, the thing that makes it so addictive is that an individual round is just so short. Win or lose, it's so easy to just say, hey, how about one more time? How about let's just try it one more time. Oh, that was really tough. That you had a tough hand. Let's just try that one more time. I hear that all the time too. Anyway, the game is The Crew. If you haven't played it, it's such a small game, so affordable, definitely check it out. But the winner in this category could also very easily be added to the scientific game category. The game is Apollo NASA's moon missions. The game is an asymmetrical cooperative game, where one player is mission control and the other player or players are the astronauts. Both sides are operating on separate screens, and they have private information which is very critical to the missions they must accomplish, but they have a very limited means of communicating that information between each other. So the game comes with two missions. One mission is to send the astronauts into orbit, and the other mission is to send the astronauts to the moon and return. The gameplay, the interaction between mission control and the astronauts feels extremely thematic. I love the limited communication in this game, but the actual mechanics that drive the game are relatively abstract. It's really just dice rolling and dice placement. So for example, one task that the astronauts might need to accomplish is to lay dice numbered 1 through 5, but those dice also need to be used to do a couple other things, like to maintain the systems. So the critical thinking that happens is, well, do I put the dice over here to accomplish the mission, or do I put the dice over here so that I can maintain these systems so they don't break down? And then the whole decision-making process is timed. You get about 4 minutes, I think, on the timer before the round is over, and you move on to the next mission round. The next category is Best Scientific Game. And by that, I simply mean games that feel like they're backed by a lot of research. The first of these, a little less scientific, but still much more realistic than a game like Terraforming Mars, at least in my opinion, is On Mars. On Mars, of course, is a very big, complicated, expensive game. But if you were going to colonize Mars, this game embodies a lot of what would be required in order to make that happen. The defining characteristic of this game, and the one that every reviewer is going to mention, is that the board is split into two sides. One side, which represents all of the actions that can take place in the shuttle or the space station that's orbiting Mars, and the other side representing what happens on the surface of the planet. And then there is the transfer of goods that happens as imports are brought in from Earth. I think that is spot on thematically. I love how the game has different engines for building up the sciences and the resources that are needed in order to make a colony survive on Mars. Of course, the big catch here is the game is very expensive and extremely complicated and not really for everyone, although I personally love it. So, the next game, and the winner of this category, is The Search for Planet X. In my personal opinion, I think On Mars is a better game, but The Search for Planet X definitely has a stronger scientific theme. In the game, players are astronomers, and they're all trying to conduct research in order to find a new planet in this solar system. They do this by making observations of the night sky, but to do this, timing is crucial because the visibility of the night sky changes with the course of time. Now, when I say they make observations or they conduct research, what's really happening is they're using an app on their personal device to look up information to help find the solution of a logic puzzle. So this is a logic deduction puzzle. As they put together the pieces of the puzzle, they publish their findings and they earn victory points for every publication that's correct. While the logic rules that govern every puzzle are different every time and rather abstract, what can't be denied is the game feels like you're really an astronomer. I really think there's an excellent execution in theme for this game. Let's move to the next category, which is the Best Science Fiction Space Game, or in the introduction I called it the Best Fantasy Game. These are games that always take place 1,000, 2,000 years in the future, and instead of just operating in our own solar system, they're going out to other stars. The first game is almost a no-brainer, in my opinion. The game is Eclipse. Eclipse is an epic game. It's in its second edition now, the second dawn of the galaxy, and in the game, players are vying to control the galaxy. And of course, you have different alien factions, and you have spaceships, and you have exploration, and you have area control, and then you have an economy of different goods. There's so much going on. The reason I picked this game over a game like, for example, Twilight Imperium, which, if you want to know my thoughts on Twilight Imperium, I did a separate review for that game. It did not place in my top 10, and you can find out why. But the thing that I really like about Eclipse, that you can't replace, in any other game that I found is the technology board. In Eclipse, every player has their own set of blueprints for their spaceships. And during the game, they research different technologies, and they take those technologies and they put them in the blueprints for their ships. So every player has the choice of maybe giving a ship better engines, or maybe replacing the engines with just tons of missiles. Or you can go heavy on shields or whatever. But the thing that I don't like about the game, the thing that makes this game a runner-up and not the winner for the category, is that the game is still really heavy on luck. Love Eclipse, I prefer it over Twilight Imperium, but it still has too much of an element of luck to really be the game for me, at least for a game that's that time-consuming. But the winner in this category is a brand new game. It actually is going to come out in 2022. And the only reason I've played it is because it's currently available on Tabletopia. The game is Age of Galaxy. And the reason it's a winner for me is because it's actually really similar to a lot of these epic games. You have alien factions, you have exploration, you have a technology board, you have war, you have all of these things, but the game is really condensed. It kind of reminds me of like the Tiny Epic series. If you've ever played like Tiny Epic Galaxies, for example, very small, very condensed. You can play it within an hour, I'd say, but what makes it a little bit better than Tiny Epic, in my opinion, is that there's much less dice rolling and less luck involved. There's a lot of strategy. I think it's so brilliant to capture all of the excitement of an epic space game, but condense it into something that's so compact. There are at least two things I think make this game really unique. One is, unlike every other game where you are playing as one alien race, in this game you have an alliance of 3 alien races, and you use their powers combined to play the game. So this actually adds tons of variability because the 3 aliens that you can use can be in any combination. I find that to be an especially unique and really interesting aspect of the game. And the other thing that I really like about this game and makes it a winner for me is that for once we have battle that isn't resolved by battle cards or dice rolling. It's just ships that are competing, who has the most ships and the most strength. I really like that. It isn't complicated, it isn't drawn out, it's a lot more strategic. If you don't win, like, you can survive. It's not absolutely devastating to lose a battle. It doesn't throw you back. You can usually make a comeback from a battle in this game. And so you get a lot of the epic gameplay, a lot less of a time commitment, and far less frustration due to luck. And that is Age of Galaxy. And finally, the best all-around space-themed board game. The runner-up for this category I only discovered because in preparation for this video, I often do lots and lots of research, and I look up games that have been on my radar for a while, and I read rulebooks, and if there's something I haven't played, I try to play it. I really want to make an excellent top 10 list, and so in my research, I found this game. I'd been putting it off for a while because it looked like another sort of epic and like really complex game. It ended up being sort of mid-level and very approachable. As you're about to find out, could very well be my top favorite game. Only reason it's not is because I only just discovered it. I need to get in some more plays before I can say for sure that it overtakes my favorite game of all time. Are you ready for the name of the game? It is Beyond the Sun. And this game is a one-off by a designer named Dennis Chan. He made one game. It's amazing. Remember how I said my favorite thing about Eclipse is all about the technology? This game is all about technology. The idea is, in the future, mankind comes to the realization that they're going to have to go beyond the sun if they're going to survive as a species. So everyone starts working together to build technologies that are going to help them explore beyond the sun. So you have this technology board, and at the beginning of the game there are cards laid out which represent the current technologies, and you can research any technology, but then there is a trajectory of all the future technologies that get revealed during the course of the game. Every technology, or at least most technologies, have actions with them, and the actions are how you play the game. So in other words, you hear about a modular board. Usually for area control, you have a modular board. In this game, you have modular actions. The actions of the game can be different every game based on the technologies that the players research, and players therefore are building the game together. This is something that I've wanted to see done for such a long time, and golly, they nailed it. I should probably do an entire review for just this game. But, man, and you know what else they did? Gosh, he streamlined, the designer, he streamlined all the resources. There are so many games, like if you look at On Mars, there's, 5 or 6 different resources. There's just 2 resources, material resources and people resources. And so there isn't so much overhead. The way that everything is tracked is with these dice. Gosh, I'm getting so excited I'm hardly verbal. The people and the ships are all tracked with dice. You have these dice that start on your board as supply cubes, and then based on how you build your economy and your network of different mines and colonies on these planets, these supply cubes get flipped over to another face. So 4 of the faces are ships, and 1 of the faces is a person. And then the other resource in the game is a metal. I can't remember if it's iron or steel or platinum or whatever, but you've got the ore that is a little piece. So you've got tokens for the ore, but everything else is dice. I think that's so elegant. The component quality of the game is extraordinary. Every individual mat has little indentations where the pieces go, so it doesn't slide around on the table, or not as easily at least. There are 2 ways to play. You've got the basic setup, or you've got the advanced setup. And they even did different player boards for basic player boards and advanced player boards. So the game is so thoughtful about scaffolding to become more complex, to add to replay value, and the idea that the players build it together just blows me away. But the next game, and the winner for best all-around space board game, is Cryo. Now, if you haven't heard of Cryo, you may have heard of Dwellings of Eldervale. Luke Laurie is the designer of both, and both games have some of the same mechanics. The idea in Cryo is players are all part of a mission on a spaceship that has crash-landed on an unknown planet, and the ship has broken apart into 4 pieces because you can have 4 players. In order to survive, the planet is not inhabitable at night. So the only way it's going to be, sub-zero temperatures, absolutely uninhabitable, the only way to survive is to get under the surface of the planet. So you have to go down deep. And to get there, you need to prepare some resources in order to explore the underground of this planet. And all of the resources are going to be found in the wreckage of your ship that has landed there. How are you going to access them? Well, your crew is all cryogenically frozen in these different pods. All you have are the robots, or the drones. So the game is, you fly these drones to different areas of the wreckage, you pick something up, or you perform an action there, or you take these cryopods and you transfer them over to the underground cavities under the surface of the planet. As you do this, after the drone lands, it comes back to your base, and when it lands there, you have the ability to build your own action board on your player mat. So you get to perform one action when your drones go out, and then after all of your drones have been sent off to the surface of the planet, when you call them back and they arrive on your player mat, they get to perform another action again. That's actually very similar to Dwellings of Eldervale. There is extremely thoughtful decision making in this game. So if you didn't like Cryo, it might be because the decision-making process is a little too heavy. I love a game that is deeply strategic, and for being a game that doesn't take too long to play, that doesn't have too many rules, I love the elegance of a game like Cryo. That's really the thing that I find very satisfying. If I can get a game that's richly thematic, which Cryo is, and deeply strategic, while feeling like there is enough complexity to give me something to consider, but not so much complexity that the overhead is tedious, like possibly my criticism of On Mars. That's really what Cryo lands at, a perfect balance. So, that is the winner for the best all-around space-themed board game. Also worth checking out is Beyond the Sun. I have affiliate links in the description of this video. If you have found any of these recommendations worthwhile, and should you decide to buy a game, would you please consider using the affiliate link if you found out about it here. Thank you so much for watching. Stick around for more. Take care. Bye-bye.